Okay, I'd like to call the meeting of the May 27th Planning Commission, Yuba City Planning Commission to order. One thing, if we could have a call to order.
Chairperson Eiler,
Here.
Vice Chairperson Blake,
Here.
Commissioner Shannon,
She responded that she's here. She just walked in.
Commissioner Schaefer,
Here.
Commissioner Ali,
Here.
Commissioner Adams,
Here.
Commissioner Dosher.
Here.
Okay. And I need to read some information regarding virtual meetings. So I'm going to go ahead and do that at this point. The governor has declared a state of emergency to exist in California as a result of the threat of COVID-19. The governor also issued Executive Order N3320, which directs Californians to follow public health directives, including canceling large gatherings. The executive order also allows local legislative bodies to hold meetings via conference calls while still meeting state transparency requirements. The public's health and well-being are at the top priority for the city of Yuba City, and you are urged to take all appropriate health safety precautions. How to participate in the virtual meeting? This meeting is utilizing the GoToWebinar application for this live broadcast. For this meeting, we will be using the questions functionality of this tool in order to accommodate public comment. On desktop computers, the questions section of the app is located at the bottom of the GoToWebinar panel, and that is on the right side of your screen. On mobile devices, there is a question mark on the bottom toolbar that opens the questions screen. For those that would like to comment during this meeting, please enter your comment into the questions portion of the app and be sure to state the item you will be commenting on. During the public comment for each item, staff will read aloud the comments provided by the public for all to hear for that specific item. Be timely with your questions, as once the public hearing is closed or the item has been discussed by Planning Commission and voted on, no more comments will be accepted for that item. Okay, so with that, we'll go ahead and do our Pledge of Allegiance. And Commissioner Adams, could you lead us in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Commissioner Adams. Okay, public comment on items not on the agenda. You are welcome and encouraged to participate in this meeting. Public comment on items not listed on the agenda will be heard at this time. Comments on controversial items may be limited, and large groups are encouraged to select representatives to express the opinions of the group. Members of the public submitting written requests. Do we have any written requests?
We do not.
Okay, thank you. And do we have anyone on that is called in that would like to speak on items not on the agenda? Do we have anyone?
No chat received. No.
Okay, all right, thank you. So we'll go ahead and move on to our next agenda item, which is the approval of the minutes for March 25, 2020.
I move to approve the minutes as submitted.
I'll second.
Give me 1 second here. I had something. No. Okay. Any discussion? We have a first and a second? No? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, approve the minutes. Our next agenda item is a public meeting consideration of an 18-month time extension for tentative parcel map TM 1704. The recommendation is to approve, let's see, where is this? This is over, well, I'll let
Sanborn Road.
Sanborn Road. And I do remember this coming before us before a couple of years ago, maybe 3 years ago. But Ben, I presume you have a staff report for us?
I do. So good evening, everyone. It's nice to see familiar faces. It's been a while. A lot of changes in the world. So thank you for your patience with the new format and kind of as we go through and tweak this as things develop and change. And so just to start things out, the applicant representative is online. He's available for questions. So if questions do come up later on, we could call him in. And also so a little background on this map to start things off is that it came through originally in 2017. It's a 2.35 acre parcel that basically, get to the picture here, it's bordered by Sanborn Road on the west and then dead ends into an existing residential subdivision where Jody Drive kind of gets cut in half, and then there's a dead end street there with Bay Drive that goes into it. And so this came before Planning Commission back in May 23rd, 2018, where it was approved with the existing conditions of approval that have been attached. And so under the municipal code, there's an allowance for 2 extensions, basically 2 18-month extensions, which is pretty typical that we're here just with the way development is and the costs and what it takes to entitle and get things processed. And so with this project, they've submitted the request for the first of the 2 available 18-month extensions. And so that would move the date to November 18th. I shouldn't say November 18th. It would move the date to April. Have I got this right? Yeah, that's what it is. November 23rd, 2021. So the November is the 18 months. So the 6 months plus the May. And so it's pretty straightforward. There's a large parcel that's a remainder piece that wasn't included in the original map. Really, that has a lot to do with infrastructure and just costs is what they do is when you don't include it with the subdivision map, you can't condition improvements for that piece of property. And so what they've done is it's really a way to finance it where you build the parcels that on the west, and then that gives you cash flow in order to come back and develop the rest of it. And so we have received an additional subdivision map that's recently come in for the remainder parcel. It's a separate map from this. And so it will be handled separate from this, but you'll see it coming before the Planning Commission here in the near future. And so really it's as simple as that. The applicant has submitted the request and paid the amounts due per the municipal code. And I'd be happy to answer any questions on it and would also be happy to have the applicant get him on the line if you have any specific questions about it.
Okay. So I think we'll just go around and we'll start with Commissioner Shannon. Any questions?
No, thank you.
Commissioner Ali? Commissioner Schaefer?
Yeah, I have just a couple. I mean, fundamentally, I have no problems with the extension. I was just curious, what has the applicant done with the tentative map since it was originally approved back in 18? Has anything been advanced towards actually putting something on that dirt, or has it sat?
It's sat. So currently, it's just a paper map that the applicant has put a lot of resources into it, where they've had improvement plans, where they've had the engineering plans for the sewer and in the water and how that lays out complete, where they've been submitted to the engineering department and had multiple plan checks on that. But right now it's just a paper lot that hasn't been finalized. I did talk to the applicant briefly just to kind of get a status as to where he's at with it and what he thought going forward. And my understanding from him is that he's getting out of the housing business and he's in the process of selling it if it hasn't been sold already, and to a developer, and they're moving forward as soon as possible to build it out with hopes of moving ideally to construct them this fall and maybe most likely next year, just with the timing of things in order to get things going. But the new applicant for the remainder parcel, they're definitely moving full speed ahead and putting investment into the remainder parcel to build that out also. So I would foresee some movement on this probably in the next 6 months regarding the map, and then seeing some building happening on these 3 parcels, at least maybe over the next year.
Thank you.
Okay.
No questions.
Okay. I just had a couple of questions. The applicant, obviously, I think you mentioned they had asked for two, was it 18-month or 3-year extensions?
Yeah, that was an interesting, the way the application request, for the extension request when it came in, he asked for all 2 he asked for both requests at one time. And so, but we looked into it based on our municipal code. You get 1 request at 18 months, and then you need to reapply 30 days beforehand.
Okay, so it's not a 3-year, it's definitely an.
First is a 2-year, then it's 18 months, 18 months.
Okay. With respect to the size of the homes, what did they, you said you had a subdivision map. Does it have any indication?
When talking with the potential developer, it sounds like they're relatively large lots, and so 6,000 square feet compared to maybe a 5,000 square foot that you see around the city. And so they're thinking of homes anywhere in the 2,500 to 2,600 square foot range
Okay.
for those 3.
My other question was already asked by Commissioner Schaefer, so that's all the questions I had. Did the applicant have anything that they wanted to talk about in terms of this, or?
Not except that they're, he's getting, so Mr. Sangren, they're getting out of the home building business and selling it off to a developer that is anxious to get started on it.
Okay. With respect to that, I'll go ahead and open the public hearing. Does anyone from the audience have any questions or pro or con about the application for the extension? None? Okay, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. Any further discussion, questions, or motion by the commission?
I'll motion to approve the 18-month extension for tentative parcel map 17-04, resulting in a new expiration date of November 23rd, 2021.
Okay, thank you.
I will
Commissioner
second
Blake?
that.
Pardon?
Sorry.
Commissioner Ali?
Commissioner Ali, and I will second that.
Okay, so a first by Commissioner Blake and a second by Commissioner Ali. All those in favor, I'm sorry, any further discussion? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. Congratulations, Mr. Sangren, you have your extension. Okay, next item on the agenda is the public consideration, no, where did it go? Is it not on here? There it is. Consideration and review for consistency with the general plan of the proposed capital improvement program for budget fiscal year 2020 through 2025. And I presume that staff has a report?
Yes, so I'm putting my public works hat on a little bit with this one. So, when I was putting this presentation together, I got a little bit of joy out of being not having to present this at the city council workshop and having to go through the budget processes with it, just because there's a lot of projects and there's a lot going on in there. And so I don't want to take credit for this presentation. This was basically robbed from Diana Langley's, our interim city manager, last night at the city council's budget workshop. And so, so pretty much the item before you is really, it's tied to our budget. It's an annual process that the Planning Commission is to review and confirm conformance, that these projects are in conformance with the general plan. And so what they presented last night, unfortunately, it's a little bleak. It's really, it's scaled back. It's really a specific fund, for designated road funds, designated water and sewer, CIP, capital improvement budget. We're proposing to unfund any fiscal year 2021 general fund projects, which really are those public facility projects. They're typically the parks, the fire station, the police station. Those are usually where the general fund dollars go to those non-road or non-enterprise fund projects. And so the capital improvement program budget that's before you is really real similar to last year as far as the projects that are in there. There's been money added to the roads and streets, and then it's really where the general fund stuff has been pulled out, except for $40,000, which was pretty much limited to regulatory costs for stormwater and a little bit of money to close out the Feather River Mills site project. And so what I have before you here is the general fund, current general projects. And so this is a little bit misleading, and just to kind of help with this, and so on these general projects, we have a property abatement, a general plan improvement plan in the Feather River Mills site. And so when you get into the weeds on this, the property abatement, it was originally budgeted based on a grant coming in for 150, and we actually received word last week that we got the grant for 250,000, which will be a nice grant that the city looks forward to utilizing with Sutter County and the homeless consortium on cleaning up some homeless sites around town. And so that's grant funded. The general plan implementation, that is SB2 grant, $310,000 that we received. And then you'll see the Feather River Mills site, the small 10,000 of that 40,000 for the year that they're programming for just to kind of help with attorney fees and various miscellaneous stuff to close out the project. So here's kind of a quick table summarizing that. Current facility projects. And so here's the big, that's really the takeaway. Proposed 2021, nothing there. And so what they've done is they've pushed that kind of the annual allotment that they usually put in for city hall improvements and improvements to buildings and grounds. We've pushed that off a year. And so that's really where you're starting to see the effect of this pandemic and the city trying to position ourselves for its impacts. Community service projects. Again, this is the takeaway. And this is where you have the effects from Feather River Parkway, the bike lane projects, Blackburn Tally improvements, different types of projects that don't have a designated specific funding source. Public safety is real similar with the fire station 2. So I want to clarify too that when you read these sheets, there's current funding. So there's existing funding in some of these project accounts that they either build up over time or they're working through. It's a multi-year project to implement. And so as you can see, the fire station 2, there's $960,000 in there, which is a relatively large amount of money. But when we went out to bid due to the construction environment here 6 months ago, when you added up all the equipment costs and the contingencies and what it would take to build that project up, we were above $2 million. And so, you know, that's where we're going to start looking into, hey, is there different options to Band-Aid some of these to get stuff by, or how are we going to unfund it and reprioritize? And so there's definitely consideration going forward over the next year, really, how we reprioritize and keep things Band-Aided together. So streets and roads projects. So that's where this budget, it really is a streets and roads and a water, because we still have designated money. There was a little concern that with people driving less, that the road tax would come, or some of the gas tax would come down, and how that would affect the different road projects that we have in there for maintenance, with them already being, there's never enough money for road maintenance. You know, we would love to have $8 million a year so we could kind of keep up, just so we keep up on where we need to be with road maintenance, but we're really where we receive about 2 of that 8 that's needed. And so, but the effects, my understanding from Diana yesterday was 150 to 200,000 was kind of what they're projecting it to go down for this year. And so they've reprogrammed some of their money in maintenance based on that. And then also with this one, I think the big takeaway is that a lot of people are excited for is the Bridge Street widening project. I have to get our glasses out here, but and so it's showing it as program, but they still haven't figured out it's an undetermined funding source. it's really, they haven't figured out a funding strategy yet, and they're still working on that because we're applying for different grants. We're trying to use local, state, federal money in order to facilitate that. And then really depending on those available funding sources from CDBG, ADA, to bringing forward 5 years worth of SB1 money to seeing what's available with impact fees and SACOG grants. They're working on that funding strategy on how they phase it and how they build that project out. But it's definitely a priority project with the bridge wrapping up soon. And as we slowly, we've acquired the right of way, and now we're working through the demolition, that we're getting closer and closer to be ready for that project to go with it being designed. I should say, this is pretty in-depth and detailed, so please feel free to ask me questions while we're going. And so if you have any specifics on any of these projects, please let me know. Here's just another slide where it breaks down a little more visible to see where the budget amount for this year is going for these different various routine projects that we really have. Really the one that stands out is the sort of bike path closure, where that's been an ongoing project through Public Works. Most of these projects are multi-years, if not annual, where you have a maintenance and rehab project. So the Sutter Bike Path gap closure, they call that area from Hooper to Harder Parkway. Yes, and so basically, technically, it ends at Hooper Road there. People kind of dogleg around on that front. It's the road adjacent to the canal there. And so we're trying to keep it so you don't have to go in the gravel and across the water tank property where we have that closure. And so the city was pretty successful. A year or two back, we acquired about $2.1 million through SACOG's regional PED program. And so there's money there, and they're working through it. And so I'm hoping to see that one come to fruition soon.
Okay, I do want to make sure that as we're asking questions that we're using the microphone so that the minute person can pick that up. And that was Commissioner Adams with that question.
So now moving into the enterprise fund. So these are, this is the distribution of funds that are specifically acquired from rates or through connection fees. And so what was relayed and what I'm not doing it justice, but what I've captured out of Diana's presentation last night is that they've kept most of the existing projects, and then they've reprioritized basically these projects that they've put funding on to try to prioritize these 4 projects. So you have the recoding the water storage tanks, the groundwater well abandonment, second water well, water treatment plant, electrical instrumentation improvements. So those are all priority projects. They've all been identified as priority 1 projects, I believe, in the past rate studies. And it's just, it's really expensive to do work now. It really is, there was a good example, and we'll see with the wastewater project here. 5 years ago, when we went out for the rate study to do a new outfall diffuser into the river, it was estimated $7 million. And typically that's with about a 30% contingency for all the costs in there. A couple years ago, they told us, hey, it's 11, pushing 15. Here this last February, they're telling us it's pushing 30 now. And so projects like that, it's kind of where all of a sudden we had to put the brakes on, regroup, reprioritize, figure out if there's different options and reevaluate it. So that's where some of these are all really, they're time, energy, they're long-standing projects that take a lot of resources to get through on a lot of these, besides some general replacement and major maintenance where it's an account that's set up just for general when something breaks at the plant where they use it for small amounts. But most of these projects with the electrical instrumentation, that's basically updating the electrical system that was originally built in the 60s. And so there's a definite need just with the change in technology and the communications to the different pumps and how to maintain those pressures. And so it's ongoing at the plants. Excuse me. So here's a quick little kind of zoom in on their priority projects they've called out. And then now with the wastewater, real similar to the water, where they've basically put specific money, the available money that they do have onto the priority projects to kind of keep working through those. So the Harder Bridge sewer trunk connection, this is a nice little project that has to do with sewer capacity and development. And so where this is that it's at the end, the dead end at Harder Parkway. So south of River Valley High School, where the road dead ends, it would basically go south through the orchard and then cut over to Harding Road. And so right now we have a surcharge issue where basically the sewer in Lassen at peak times, it's surcharging, so it's getting to a level that's not acceptable. It's backing up. And there's pumps, and it really has to do with the capacity of the line. It's just too small for that, and it was meant with the way the timing and the phasing of development. It was sized appropriately, but it was based on another line being built that hasn't been built yet. And so with this project, besides increasing capacity for north for projects like Harder specific plan, it also opens up capacity for the areas on Franklin, kind of for the El Margarita master plan area. It gives a little more capacity in there for future development.
I have a question for you real quick. And related to that, a lot of the houses, this is where I live actually, in El Margarita Estates, are they planning on bringing sewer there? Or, 'cause we're all on septic right now, our own septic systems.
So no. So to be blunt, is basically sewer only gets extended when it's development driven.
Okay.
And so even when development occurs at some point in the future down Franklin Road, the way the municipal code is set up, it's really, they're just going to extend it. There'll be a main maybe in El Margarita Road or a main in Franklin, but in order to get back into the neighborhood and hook to those individual homes, that would be a cost burden that's typically, unless it's grant funded, that would be typically put onto the homeowners. And so we've seen creative ideas over time where we set up assessment districts, or there's some sort of a grant that we could help finance it over time. But really, sewer particularly, it's really tough. Water with public health issues and different things, sometimes there's more grants, but with sewer, no. And it's the way the municipal code is that it's at the owner's cost in order to hook.
Yeah,
And
no
so,
problem.
and
I'm just
so it
curious.
usually becomes unfeasible in order to put that in.
Thank you.
Now it's Commissioner Schaefer. It's all right.
This is Commissioner Adams. Once your septics begin to fail and impede on your water system and your water supply, are you on a well out there?
Actually, no, but Ben
No,
was talking
no,
about
I'm-
with the grants, when they brought us an annex to Sin, the city went and paid to have all of the
have the wa-
homes
water,
put
okay.
on city water.
Okay, because
Yeah.
then at that point in time, then it becomes a health and safety issue, and then they have a lot more funding available to them, but.
I was just,
And that's how the water line project was built in that area.
gotcha.
And so with that, I don't have any, the only projects that come to mind. So in the general plan, basically the item before you tonight is that under California law, the Planning Commission has a responsibility of reviewing the CIP to determine whether it conforms to the general plan. Specifically, the government code requires the commission to review the following actions: for acquisition of land, public purposes, disposition of land, street vacations, and authorization of any public buildings. So through those projects, really the acquisition of public land comes through the Bridge Street widening project that has already occurred. There is a disposition of land where through the groundwater well abandonment project, there will have these small well sites, small parcels that the city is going to have to, once they've been abandoned, they're going to work through individually coming to council, because each one is site specific as far as, is it a legal parcel? Is it too small? Does it need to be lot line adjusted? Do we need to go put it out to a public notice for a sale? And depending on the size and requirements on those. So none of those projects currently come to mind where there'll be required street vacations, where basically you'd be vacating the public right-of-way, abandoning it. And then authorization of construction of public facilities, public buildings or structures. And really, through this general fund project, we've really unfunded most of those public buildings. And so there's no projects in here with, for construction of public buildings, except for existing money allocated for fire station improvements that is not planned to go forward anytime soon. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions and propose my recommendation as stated.
Okay, we'll go ahead and start on this end this time. Commissioner Dosher, any questions for Director Moody?
I have no questions.
Okay, Commissioner Adams?
I have no further questions. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, Commissioner
I
Blake?
have a quick question, Ben. On the, one of the items says replace water service or water meter, like $8 million. What is that for?
You know, that's a nice little project. So we, I see we with my public works hat on, we obtained a $8 million grant or a loan grant with $4 million of it being forgivable. So basically, $8 million project, they give you $4 million bucks. And so with that, it was a water conservation grant that we got to switch from radio read meters to cellular. Basically, it's a meter head that texts now. And it's a great project because that's just the world we live in now. Instead of the days where you'd walk and read them to then touch reads where they'd go by on a bike and touch them, to now every first of the month at night we have a couple guys run different different loops, designated routes that have the radio equipment. Now we're in the age of technology with the cellular reads, and the cellular reads, it's a great function for the customers. First off, with the grant, there's considerable savings of us having to switch to those without the grant. And then also with that, there's the benefit that now, instead of getting the bill every once a month when they go out to read it, and then it takes 15 days to mail it out, there's apps available that basically real time, or once a day, it sends a message out so you know what your water use is. So people can then use that interface to find out, hey, do I have a leaky faucet? All of a sudden, you know, you're not having to wait a month to find out you've been sending water out the backyard. And so, so that project was recently awarded by council, and Public Works is working through that with, I believe, expectations that it's going to be installed here in the next 6 months to a year and finalized.
And what homes are going to, is it
So in the
every
entire
home?
city of Yuba City.
Wow.
And so it's 19,000 plus meters, you know, and so I should be specific. It's not, there's only a certain percentage where they're going to actually replace the meter body. This has to do with the head on it. There's if you look at the top of your water meter box, there's usually a plastic cone area there. That's where the radio head underneath sits. They're going to swap that out with the cellular meter head. And there's certain ones where, because the batteries have hit their lifespan for the radio reads, and so we would have had to go in and replace them anyways. And so it's a great opportunity, and I look forward to seeing happy customers over it. Hopefully they get some benefit out of it.
Great, thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Ali?
No questions, just a comment that there's been times when we've spent our entire couple of hours of commission meeting going over the proposed budget that was going to the city council. So this is just a really different dynamic. It's just a comment that it's so scaled down this year that there aren't too many questions.
Yeah, I hope in the future years I could get a little bit more pictures and different things of the successes, because they've had a lot of great successes this last year with improvements to the bridge and different maintenance work around. It just really, I didn't get to it, unfortunately. And so
I'm not criticizing, I'm just commenting that it just seems much more streamlined.
Okay, Commissioner Shannon?
So when this cellular improvement happens, will people that don't have access to the information, I mean, is there still going to be a paper bill system?
Yes.
Okay.
And so that is definitely one of the big logistics with that, is how to, the way it's being set up is we're actually hiring a company that does this, the programming, and they basically do a training on the construction workers where they have somebody with almost like a bar scanner like you'd see in the grocery store. So when they go and place the new cellular meter, it'll have a bar. It'll have a little tag on the wire with a bar. What am I trying to say? It's one of those barcodes. And with that barcode will be linked to that address, to that meter with the date and the current meter reading. And so then that information gets sent over into our existing system that's been in operation with Penimation for 20 plus years or whatever that time frame is. And so it's a big deal with 19,000 conversions to make sure that happens timely and it doesn't get messed up. And so there's a lot of work on the back end to make sure that goes smoothly and it can keep up to speed with the switch outs and with finance, so the billing happens smoothly. And so you'll still get your bills the same, but the way it gets read and sent to the data center is different.
And if I understood the way you explained it, for people that are more computer savvy, they can just dial into their account and see what's going on day by day.
You could definitely see what your current volume use is. And then I don't know if it has the exact breakout on the bill. I'm not that familiar with the system as far as through that app. It definitely keeps track of how much water you're using, but I don't know if it's converted to know what our rate structure is. And so, so not that we can't get there, but I'm not familiar to answer it right now.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Ben, I had just one question. Mainly, I understand that we're voting on this tonight to indicate that this conforms with the general plan. And I'm not sure what a no vote would mean. I mean, usually we pretty much vote yes, but is that a recommendation to the council then, or is it just it's a separate vote on that?
So it was. I think I have the wording in the general plan on our agenda. So City Council reserves the right and the wording to override the decision. But with that, Planning Commission is reviewing and whether it conforms. Planning Commission find the capital program. So the recommendation is that yes, we're looking for an approval that these projects do conform with the general plan.
Okay, and that's a recommendation to the council for their vote, correct?
You would find it, the Planning Commission would find it, that that's consistent with the general plan.
Okay.
I don't believe the City Council is reassessing it for conformance with the general plan.
They're not. Okay.
They're looking at it for budget purposes. But
Got
if
it.
there are any comments, they will definitely be relayed to City Council.
Okay. Did they vote on it last night on this? Or?
No, it was just last night was just a budget workshop.
Overview.
It was just really the budgets, the draft budgets were fresh off the press. And it was basically the first of many workshops where here's the draft and here's some of the basis behind it. And then there's going to be multiple meetings on June 2nd, June 9th, June 16th,
Okay.
going forward with plans from the finance director to reevaluate the budget quarterly going forward, just to see, hopefully it's better. But if not, they'll make adjustments going forward.
Okay. The only, so in terms of the general plan, I think it falls within that from my perspective. And I know we'll open this up here in a moment for public comment and additional thoughts. So, but as of now, one question I also had was, or just one comment outside of the general plan scope, but certainly when I drive around, and I know that COVID-19 is a big part of this, but that only happened in March. Our roads, when you compare it to other cities, and I'm driving outside of just the Marysville, Yuba City area, which I still say we have a notch up just barely on Marysville, but when I've been spending more time in other towns, not around here, and nobody. These are some of the worst roads that I'm aware of in this kind of I-80 corridor, if you will. I know we're off I-80, but still in this kind of range. I get that Bridge Street we're going to widen someday, but If you drive down Bridge Street and you're trying to do 35, you're going to rip the bottom off your transmission probably or something. I mean, it's pretty rough. And so that's just, and there's other streets that maybe not quite that bad, but pretty close. And so that's just one guy's comment is, that I wanted to make. So anyway, with that, any other questions for staff? We'll go ahead and open up to public comment. Okay. Anyone from the public wish to have a question or comment or anything pro, against? No? Okay. Anybody in the audience? Okay, we'll go ahead and close the public session. Okay, any further questions, discussions, motions?
I do have a question. When looking at this, it has been 2 months. Has the city been hit so hard to take back and retract so tightly going into this next fiscal year?
I would say yes. And so from the projections that have coming out and the impacts already from the quarterly, from some of the sales tax data that I'm hearing from the finance department for just the month of March and now going for April, is that there has been a substantial decrease where it affects projections for the end of 1920, and then it also substantially is projecting just a slowing for 2021. And so proactively, we don't want to get behind the curve, that we want to start adjusting for it now so it's not too late.
Thank you.
Through the chair.
Sure. Commissioner Adams?
Ben, the citywide traffic model update that's on the list here, was that included in the council's budget for 2021, or was that removed?
It was, and
included?
that's another great project, and it ties into development. And so that project has pretty much been funded with impact fee money.
Right.
And so it's not
Not as volatile.
yeah, as volatile with the general plan or general fund dollars. But with that, we're working, Fear and Peers is our traffic consultant. They're wrapping up our model. And what that means is that for development is that July 1st, 2020, there's a change in the way CEQA, you need to analyze environmental impacts for traffic. So instead of looking at it a level of service, meaning how long do I wait when this development happens, how long do I wait at the light? Now you're looking at the impact is how many trips am I adding? And so with that, they want a general reduction of 15% reduction in trips for an average use. So basically what that's meaning is that when a residential development comes in, Public Works most likely will have a criteria that you still want to maintain a minimum level of service, that we don't want people to be delayed so long. But when they look at it environmentally, there's going to be a mitigation. So there's going to be some sort of requirement on these that if they don't reduce trips for that land use by 15%, they have to have some sort of mitigation, which is, nobody's really told me what examples of that are as far as paying into some sort of ride share or providing more electric bikes or different type of facilities. And so that's a major deal for California, and Yuba City is sitting in actually a pretty good spot. And so Diana with her team, we got with Fear and Peers almost a year ago now to develop our model, because basically if we didn't have this model in place, development would be at a standstill until a developer came in and then either did their own work or came up with a reasonable justification. It pretty much would put a halt on development. Not that COVID-19 isn't affecting that now, but what that's going to do is we're going to have a new model. We're analyzing it to help with impact fees, to maybe not build roads that don't need to be built or they don't need to be as big. And then also when we compare our area compared to Sacramento or some of these other hubs, the forecast models are already showing that we've met that 15% criteria based on the dynamics of our city for a land use for our area. And so it looks like that residential and commercial less than 50,000 square feet won't be affected by this VMT, where places in Sacramento will be. And so it'd be one more benefit for Yuba City, I guess, that we'll have one less fee compared to the Sacramento region regarding some of these VMT criteria.
I'm assuming this will be used to update the general plan as well. And when is
So the money in this the money that's being programmed this year is to help update the transportation element with the environmental
plan.
portion of the general plan as we update the $310,000 to do the housing.
So this is in combination with that?
Correct.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Motion? Commissioner Shannon?
I move that the Planning Commission find that the capital improvement program is consistent with the Yuba City General Plan and that we forward our finding to the City Council.
Second.
Okay, Commissioner Dosher, second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. CIP is passed. And the final item that we have on our agenda, I believe, has been removed, but we'll go ahead and just, for the record, state that public consideration of the mitigated negative declaration and development plan for the Sutter Foods Agricultural Warehouse on Franklin Road. Did
So
you
through
have
the
an update for
applicant-
for us on that?
Yes, so through the applicant request, we'd like to extend the meeting to a date certain to the June 24th Planning Commission. Make sure I got the date right.
So Ben, when you have a hearing, I think you have to open it and then continue it.
Please,
Do we need to open it for public comment?
please, and then.
Okay. We'll open for public comment. Any comments from the public? Anyone out there? Nope. Okay. And then
I don't know, did we receive
anyone online?
no comment?
Okay. And then, so we continue it?
So with that, the applicant is requested to extend it to a date certain June 24th
Okay.
Planning Commission meeting.
Are you looking for a vote on that, Ben, or is that just?
Nope.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right, next item on the agenda is Development Services Director Reports.
All right, so
We have a couple of questions.
You didn't close the public hearing.
We'll just close the public hearing, so it's done.
So we'll confirm, but the item has been extended to date certain June 24th Planning Commission meeting.
Okay.
All right, so director's report. So really, COVID-19 has really been dominating the news and our lives here for you and for City Hall, most likely. And so just a quick recap on kind of what's been happening with the Development Services Department over the last couple months. And so in March 2020, employees basically began teleworking. We closed City Hall to the public. And so mid-March, March 19th, March 20th, in that timeframe, most of Development Services continued to work with code enforcement and the building inspectors working part-time on essential projects. And then with planning, really just closed to the public and still processing stuff. In April, there was a change in the governor's direction and the public health order regarding changing the definition of essential and non-essential. So we had a little impact on what building permits we would issue permits for, as we were still trying to take those in online. So we really converted, with City Hall being closed, we still remained open to the construction community, but it was a virtual change. And so trying to ramp up our system and be able to kind of figure out the logistics on how to drop or not physically hand copies of plans or permits for signature anymore. So we worked through that in April. In May, we resumed issuing permits for all projects and inspections. And we reopened City Hall on a limited basis. And so right now, City Hall is open Monday through Friday, 9 to 2 to the public. And most employees are working or telecommuting, flexing their hours to work through the social distancing protocol. And basically June 1st, so beginning next Monday, City Hall is going to resume to Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 to the public. So that's been some of the excitement happening with the social distancing and the protocols at City Hall. A few of the major projects that are still underway. We've just wrapped up the Central City Specific Plan. There was a host of activities associated with that you and the city council have seen over the last few months regarding changes to the Bridge Street policy, and then land use changes to the specific plan, the general plan, rezone, et cetera, and then also the KFC and some of the drive-throughs. And so I highlight this project, even though it's pretty much been entitled, is that if you've been past there lately, they've been starting to do the excavation for the remediation, which I understand is really close to being completed. And we've recently received the full submittal for the Holiday Inn Express hotel on the south end of that, and then also working through the KFC plans. And so those projects, my understanding is they're still pushing and moving forward. And so we're working through those and hope that they keep moving forward. The LDS Temple, that's working through behind the scenes right now, where it made the news recently about them starting to do the demolition work across the street here, and you'll see an use permit come before you at the June 10th meeting is what's planned right now to consider the LDS Feather River Temple. Harder development, that's an ongoing project where they have a subdivision, Harder North, Harder South, 2 residential subdivisions, and then there's a rezone and how that ties into the specific plan amendment and a general plan amendment possibly, and then with the financing plan and different DAs, and it gets a little complicated, but that's behind the scenes, and we're trying to plug forward, and they have a consultant staff, pretty experienced consultant staff that's making progress with doing a supplemental EIR and moving through that. So that's working behind the scenes over the next 6 months or so. Sutter Food Ag Warehouses, we just talked briefly about, we'll readdress on the 24th. And there's a few subdivision maps that recently, that have been in the works or recently submitted. The Perkins Ranch map, that was on hold. The applicants wish to push that forward, and so we're looking to try to get that on for the June 24th Planning Commission meeting. And then you have relatively recent smaller subdivisions, but you have Hooper Ranch, which is I think it's 28 units, 20 to 30 units that is on Hooper Road behind a church there. So it's kind of creative where it's north of the El Margarita Road or north of the frontage road. I can't pronounce the name of that road. San Graningio. I don't know if anybody's familiar with that area. There we go. And so it's just north of that, and there's kind of some odd parcels in there that they're going to go through, proposing to go through and cut. And so that's going through the works that hopefully we get to here in the next couple months. And then also with the East Sanborn Estates is basically that remainder parcel that you saw earlier that's coming forward with, I believe, another 12, 13 lots in there. And so the Hampton Inn, that's an expansion of the Hampton Inn facility there on Sunsweet and the back road there. I'm going blank on the name of the road there, but well, I'm trying to Annette Way. And so it adds, I believe, 90 units, 50 to 90 units that to the backside there. And they've, even with the COVID-19 really putting a real damper on the hotel industry, they're pushing forward for the entitlement with plans to move forward with construction if things pick back up. So, but we're still working through the entitlement process. And then you have an AT&T pole that we're kind of been working through for a little while. So with that, I just highlighted a few of the major projects that are in process. As far as plan checks, there may be some redundancy, but just in case you haven't heard of all of those, including the KFC, the Feather River Mills site, which has the Holiday Inn on the south. Additionally, there's a couple drive-throughs that they're wanting to put applications in and move forward with on the piece closer to Bridge Street that you'll be seeing here in the future. The Circle K coffee shop, they're working through the plans and lease agreements. It sounds like they're still moving forward. The O'Reilly Auto Parts, the Dollar General is working full speed ahead. Fur and Feathers, that's a relatively recent approval here on Pool Boulevard where they're working through the pet hotel. So we just got our first plan check through the other day that we're working through that. Ampla Health, the LDS Temple Fabric Store on Pelora, and some various sign updates with the Yuba Sutter Mall 5-Star Bank, which is taking over from the old Feather River Bank there on Hart Parkway. A lot of T-Mobile signs as they've replaced Metro PCS, and some McDonald's is doing some drive-through improvements. So that's really what's kind of going on behind the scenes with a lot of planning entitlement projects and different things. And then just miscellaneous, it sounds like I received some feedback that the binders were okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So we'll continue on with that. But I'd be happy for comment or improvement.
I prefer no binder because when I'm sitting over there, I have my piles set out and the binder's clicking open, clicking closed. It's just a preference. Darren tried to start this and we found it, and I say we loosely, I found it very cumbersome. But that's just me. If everybody else likes it, that's cool.
Well, please shoot me an email or let me know, and we could probably work to accommodate. So, I mean, it might make things easier for us if we don't have to put it in the binder. So if that's a preference, just let me know. Meeting formats. So going forward with the 10th and the 24th, just with the uncertainty of how what the public health orders will be and what the state locally, and then also with the state, with the notice times, usually we have to put out the notice 20 days beforehand if it's not a major project. And so right now we're proceeding with this style of for the next 2 meetings. And so if that changes and I'm able to change it in time for the notice, I'll let you know. But right now we're probably going to stick with this format for the next couple meetings. Upcoming meetings, I've referenced those a little bit, and I wanted to get those on the calendar, especially with summertime starting, is that right now we have the June 10th meeting scheduled for the LDS Feather River Temple and the Hampton Inn development plan, and then with June 24th, the Perkins Ranch subdivision. And then we'll also add the Sutter Foods warehouse back onto that. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I have one question through the chair. I may have missed it, but in your development report, what about the hotel that we had approved kind of just off the southwest corner of the 20 and the 99? What's going on with that?
I haven't spoken to the developer directly, the owner. My understanding from the engineer is that it's pulled off the table due to the environment right now.
Oh, okay.
As far as, the use permit's still valid, but as far as progress and moving forward with, there was an expansion in the works, where they were actually, because he bought the adjacent parcels, and they were working to reconfigure it, that with what's going on right now, it's on hold.
Beautiful plan. Hopefully someday it gets built because it surely looked nice on paper.
Yeah.
Mr. Shannon?
Are we supposed to empty our binders and leave them here for you to refill for next time?
So it's at your discretion. You could keep what you want out of the binder, but if you don't want anything, please just leave it and we'll figure it out. So if you wanted to take it home, please take the papers out of it. If not, we'll empty them.
Okay, but we're supposed to turn our binder in so you can refill it.
Correct.
Got it.
Any other questions? I'm just going to say, for one, I like the binders, helps, because otherwise stuff gets I spread it across the living room and then I try to put it back together and it never works. So, and a question from the development update, with respect to next to Rayleigh's, anything going on there with, I'm trying to remember the clothing store that perhaps was going to go in there.
DD's, and I'm having a hard time with names today. DD's
discounts.
And so, I've never received a formal application. We had the sign guy, the person that was contracted to do the sign. He reached out to us. They wanted a oversized sign, and we kind of told him no, or please follow our code. But there is a process if you want to go further. He's basically through a variance or through a master sign program for the facility, and we haven't heard back. That was around the COVID-19 time, and so. But we definitely look forward to working with him. And we didn't intend to slow anything down. It was just we were working through a sign permit approval, so which is ministerial staff level type deal, and so we never had a formal building plan submittal for a tenant improvement, or do we ever get a formal sign, or is it just kind of a preliminary discussion? So even on the sign submittal, it was just really a preliminary plan.
Any other questions for Ben? Okay, let's see, was there anything else on the, report of actions of Planning Commission for Sutter County? Commissioner Shannon, are you on that now, or are you official?
Am official. I had my first meeting last week, and I'm not very prepared to make a report because I had 10 minutes warning that I was supposed to be here. I thought that the meeting was virtual. Somehow I missed and I lost a block of emails, so I didn't know that we were actually meeting physically. So, Commissioner Dosher, do you have anything that you can report on from that meeting?
Sure, it was very minor in nature. One public hearing item was a caretaker's cottage out by Red Dog Ranch on Franklin Road. That was unanimously approved, and then there was some cleanup ministerial action for Mr. Libby's office that was granted permission through the Planning Commission for him to engage in that.
Got it.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right. With that, any other comments or additions, questions?
Through the chair, I have a request for the commission to consider as we move forward through the budget constraints and postponing our receipt of payment from the city for our time spent here at the meetings. So I would ask that it be agendized possibly for the next meeting for us to discuss further.
On that, it's probably just like a city council person or a board of supervisor who says that when they're running for office that they're not going to accept pay or they're not going to accept this, that legally those things are required, but so we might have to seek legal counsel on that.
Could we ask potentially Ben to look into that? Yeah. Yeah, for the next meeting.
All right. Okay. Anything else? Okay, hearing none, we'll go ahead and close the meeting.